Well, welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, and we're doing something a little bit different today. We're going to show you an interview I recently did with Paula Williams, ABCI. They're an aviation marketing lab, and they interviewed me about my brand new book, Airport and Aviation Insurance Fundamentals, which is a concise guide for airports and aviation businesses, now available on Amazon. And so today we wanted to share with you Paula's interview with me on her podcast for ABCI. So enjoy it, and we hope you what you learn and maybe hear something a little bit different from the show today. Thank you very much for listening.
Welcome to the Aviation Insurance Podcast, the podcast that helps aircraft owners and aviation businesses learn and understand the complex world of aviation insurance and risk management. From the basic principles of aviation insurance to risk management techniques and updates on the aviation insurance market, the Aviation Insurance Podcast is your guide to traverse the world of aviation insurance. Now, here's your...
Great. Well, Tim, it's really cool to be able to see you again after seeing you in person fairly recently. And I don't usually get to see this much of you, which is great. We were just both recently in Las Vegas for the NBAA show. And it was kind of cool it's always great to see everybody in person. And I think that's one of the biggest values of that show. And then sharing ideas in person, there's nothing better than being in the same room. But Tim, I know you've attended NBAA many, many times. Did you have anything that surprised you about this year's show, or do you still recommend NBAA as a marketing venue, or what's your feeling about the future of trade shows?
That's a really great question this year. I think I always find value in it. We have customers that we meet most every year, some that we see once every 2 or a couple of years. Obviously, we have our insurance company partners there. It's always good to be a part of the buzz and see the newest news and to connect with other vendor partners like we do with yourself and to get to mix with other networks. You and some of your other clients. So I got some great discussions with them, got to meet some new people, had some great conversations. And so I think there's always value in that. The show was noticeably smaller in some capacities. It's always a big show. It's a big show, but when you're used to what it was a while back, I think all changed, and the manufacturers had less of a presence in the exhibit hall, while some of them didn't come or they reduced down their efforts at the static display. But I guess they feel if they've already got a big backlog of on being sold, then they don't need to do as much. So the fortunate thing is it made it easier to walk and see more things. But it's always good. Many people in the industry there, customers, and I think you talk about just being intentional with setting appointments, having clear goals as to what you want to accomplish when you're there, and we certainly did the same and enjoyed it as usual.
Oh, great! Yeah, I think we did as well, and I think if there's been a change in strategy, maybe has been fewer of our clients are exhibiting, and more of our clients are walking and strategically making appointments and other things like that, just because the expenses have gone so far up. And it looks like a lot of people have made that decision because there were a lot fewer exhibits this year, or a lot fewer booths. And a lot of companies that have exhibited in the past are simply, they're not foregoing the show altogether. They're just coming to interact and enjoy that part of the show rather than manning a booth and having that presence there. So that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah. It's a very expensive show. And, obviously you got to have people in a booth for 2.5 days. And if you've ever done that, especially in a smaller company, quite exhausting, I assure you. But, it's nice when people are there and come and see you. But if you're strategic, you can get your calendar filled with high quality meetings and whatever works for your purpose, your company, obviously. And I think our strategies were similar, given the nature of what we're doing.
Right, exactly. Well, that's fantastic. So I think the coolest news that you shared at the show was your new the second edition of the Aircraft Insurance Fundamentals book. Of course, anytime there's a second edition, I always have to ask, what made the difference between edition 1 and edition 2? Was there like an incident or a conversation or something that made you want to dive in again? Because anybody who's ever published a book knows that this is so much work that you never want to do that again for a while. But then something makes it necessary, right?
Yeah, that's true. And actually, this is actually, there are some common elements to the very first book back here, is Aircraft Insurance. Figured correctly. We actually just released released the second edition of that specific book actually a few months ago. And what we released last week is actually mostly new book. It's expanded. It really focuses not on just aircraft insurance, insuring aircraft operations, but it's really designed for airports and aviation business.
That's
and
right.
So it's by far the biggest of the 3 books that I've written on aircraft insurance, or aviation insurance fundamentals. The first one being on aircraft, the second there is on aerial application, and so this one really gets more into general business insurance, aviation and airports, things like the aviation commercial liability, additional risk management and safety things, contractual liability, workers' compensation, business, auto, property, all these other things, cyber liability, employment practices that go into operating a full-fledged aviation business, not just operating an aircraft, but many aviation businesses operate aircrafts, being similar but expanded in aircraft book in there. And, the reason is, we just, you're into marketing and everything we do is really about value creation.
Yeah.
And, you think about what do you do uniquely in the market. And I think it's really good at having very strong knowledge of the insurance policies of the business, arguably better than most in the industry. I would argue that. And we're good at creating content. This is a book, we've got blogs, we've got articles we write for other publications, we've got the Aviation Insurance podcast. And so, I felt that this was a gap in what was out there, because most what is out there about aviation insurance is either, available specifically through the Insurance Association, which has great courses and information for its members and non-members, which I participate in and teach their stuff. But making airport operators and aviation businesses where just had to have a resource to them of all the different aviation business insurance exposures, something that really wasn't out there on a semi-readable basis. I don't think there's any book about insurance that's really exciting to be a page turner to entertain you on a long flight. But when you're needing to understand what it is you're doing, how to understand the all the insurance policies you're paying for, and all the exposures you have, and what exposures you may have but aren't covered. That's really what this book is designed to do. It covers many of the typical exposures an aviation business or airport might have. Obviously, it's so diverse. The industry's got many different things it does, and so there's never 100% catch-all, but it goes over the majority of the insurance policies and exposures that typical aviation business or airport might have. And so, to me, it was a source of pride to do what we do well and market to create value. And that's really what it's about, help inform, the aviation industry, that especially on the business side, airports, their insurance coverages, a lot of the considerations go into that. And so it's an undertaking, but I also surround myself with a good team who helps edit, and guys are involved in that. My team specifically, I create a lot of initial content, but I surround myself with a lot of good people who copy edit and press releases, art, format things. So the more you do these things, kind of, you know what you're doing, you have a better idea of how to do it. And so, it was just an opportunity to bring this content to market that wasn't there, and to provide this consumer. Now, it's not always serving airports and aviation businesses. I get told regularly by industry colleagues when I go to various events, or talk to them on the phone, or at the Aviation Insurance Association conference, used to train a lot of my underwriters and various people at insurance companies and even friendly competitors in the industry. So my books have gone on to reference in a number of capacities that really, honestly, Paula, was surprising to me. I think the first book right there.
Yeah, the Aerial Application Fundamentals, right?
The aircraft one is on the NBAA Certified Aviation Managers recommended list. You Google it, it's listed at several universities. So being its own unique niche really expands the possibilities of who it impacts and who it's reaching. And you start with an idea to write a book and create some value, and it's really interesting to see where it goes. And it's reaching a lot of different audiences of people in the aviation industry, from school, very involved in the business.
Right. So it's almost like an evolution where one book made the next necessary. The reaction and I guess interaction based on the book creates the next book, because then you realize, wow, there's some stuff in Aviation Insurance Fundamentals about business insurance, but not about all of the specific aviation business insurance needs and nuances and everything else. So it uncovered the need. One set of content created the need for the next.
Yeah, and obviously you do a lot of teaching on marketing, but when we create podcasts, when I present topics, or you're diving deep into these topics, and so it's not that any of this wasn't without a lot of these different chapters and topics I'd already done some research, created some initial content for, and so I'm always about utilizing our content, repurposing it appropriately. Obviously, this is much more in depth than any other piece of content we use this information with. It's much more expanded, but it wasn't without any other work in place already. And that's the advantage of, when you're, do content marketing and focus on creating value market, you're able to take the work you've done and to apply it in multiple different ways to different audiences. That went into this as well. So, some of this I'd worked on or had a lot of the content for, or at least the bones skeleton for different levels. And went in and added context. It took a lot of time and effort. Because, we've had this ongoing strategy, content marketing and bringing the value to the industry. It made doing this book certainly a lot easier. At Aris Insurance Solutions, our customers tell us that they work with us because we are responsive, we get back to them quickly, we're reliable to get the job done and follow through with what they've asked us to do. We communicate effectively so they always know what we're doing. We anticipate their needs so that they don't have to think of everything they need in their aviation insurance program. And this and many more reasons are why people work with Aris Insurance Solutions. To learn how you can contact and work with Aris Insurance Solutions, click in the link below for all that information.
Right, exactly. So obviously, this has helped the books in general, and having published them, some of them a while back, has positioned you as a thought leader in the industry. But let me ask you this, because this is a marketing podcast, I have to ask, how do they fit into your sales cycle? How do you use them in your sales process, or do you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we have a specific prospect, the book's a tool that we can use to send them and to connect with them on. A lot of times, especially a lot of businesses, you can't just go up and buy fuel or have them fix something one time. Starting a relationship with an insurance agent or marketing agencies can be a longer term commitment. And so when you put out content, it offers people the opportunity to take that, here's a sample. This person knows what they're talking about. When you have podcasts and things, it gives them opportunity to get to know you, your thought process, your communication. So there's that specifically. Obviously, people buy this all over the place, and you'll get calls from people who've read the book. Yeah. They call and say, "Hey, podcast, like to think about our aviation insurance, aircraft insurance, whatever it might be." So it positions you as a thought leader, but you can use it directly, and they'll obviously have indirect opportunities. I get called by, attorneys, aviation attorneys who've read the book and want me to be an expert witness. And they read the information. So there's just, as with anything, you've got the direct value, and then there's a lot of intrinsic values on it. And so, with the time we've invested in creating content, whether the books, the podcast, there's always been an ROI. Some of you can directly see, and some of it, there's just a number of intrinsic values. So we've not regretted any of that time invested. And again, I've, people say, how do you have the time? And I'm just like, well, this is part of what I do. And B, I really surround myself with a great team to accomplish.
Right.
A lot of times it's not, how can I do this myself? It's how can I do what I need to do, and then surround myself with other people with the skills and ability to help me to finish it and get it done. Right.
That's so interesting because, a lot of people who are content creators are practitioners of a profession, of course, and they see the content creation not as a separate thing from their business, but they see that as part of what they do. Their job is to educate their customers. So, if you're creating these materials partly for your customers so that they are, educated about the decisions that they're making, they're getting better service from you. This is part of the value that you create for your customer. So it is part and parcel of your practice, to produce some of this. And I love that philosophy that I think a lot of people share. I guess, Jordan Peterson, he's a psychiatrist, psychologist, and he extends his practice into his content, and whether you agree with them or not, he's very, very popular, and he's a whole lot more successful in his profession because of the content he creates. And, I think in tiny niches like ours, we have some of that same opportunity without the, I don't know what you would call it, the weight or the fame, that goes with it. You want to be very, very famous, but with a very small group of people. So maybe you're famous when you walk down an aisle at NBAA, but you can still go to the supermarket in peace without being mobbed by, fans.
Absolutely. And, at the end of the day, people have different motivations, and we're a very purpose-driven company. We want to make an impact on the people we serve. And then conversely, it never feels bad to have a positive impact on your industry. When we're at the end of our career, not going to go out and repeat, what your sales numbers were. Obviously, positive, you want to make a profit, but it's the impact you made on your industry and on others that really contributes to your long-term legacy and take. And so, content creation, that's just another part of it. And so, if this trains, my competition, so be it. If our industry is better, so be it. And I really, again, at the end of the day, I think that usually always, rewards the person anyway. So, again, this, whether it's the podcast, providing content, serves your customers, helps train my own team.
Yeah.
Because they have right from resources. We definitely do give these books to the customers that they apply to anytime we have the opportunity, and, obviously by mail. And but you shouldn't overlook, just having a purpose mindset to leave the industry a better place when you arrived in it. I'm the beneficiary of training, and my dad, who was in the business, also other men. Some are retired, some are still in the business. More and more of them are becoming retired each year. But, they made decisions to, spend time with me and to spend a lot of time with me, and I grew as a result. And so, obviously, content creation just has a lot of benefits, but that may be one that gets overlooked from time to time. It's just, it's good to have a positive impact on your industry, and I don't think that ever hurts.
Absolutely. I mean, it becomes kind of priceless, frozen wisdom. There's the ephemera of the internet, that comes and goes, and things are popular for a while and then not, and everything. But I still love books, and we have our book club because I think, it is concentrated wisdom, that's frozen into a really convenient form. And it took effort to produce this. Unlike a lot of the content on the web, a lot of people have blogs, a lot of people have podcasts, which are great in and of themselves, but they're usually very specific. Some of them are very time oriented and things like that. But what goes into a book is usually much more timeless and much more concentrated, I guess, wisdom,
Absolutely. And, when you create this content, obviously the book lives out there in one way, but, all the other content, such as the podcasts or the subsequent blogs. I mean, when you go to do, sponsorship type of marketing and other digital marketing, content you put out there improves your SEO, your search engine rankings, I know, and cost per click stuff, that helps a lot. So really, there's a lot of benefits. I don't sit there and really name any of these other than this is what I can do well. This is how I can serve my clients, prospects in our industry. And so we just calling to put it out there and to do the best job we can. And, even back to your original question, things change, new risks emerge. For instance, in this aircraft insurance book, we saw even at NBAA a couple new eVTOL, electronic vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, part of the new advanced air mobility movement. So, we've got an introduction into that in the aircraft book. UAS, unmanned aerial system market's growing, and then things like in this new book, we got cyber liability, cyber insurance, which was a big thing to everybody back in the day, but now it's affecting sizes. So that's why, a lot of these books are timeless, but there is an opportunity to update some of them. And that's why, and you get through it and you get through the editing process and you realize something got changed that somehow you missed. There's always something you want to update because the editing process just catch everything, or someone misunderstood something. And as many times as you read it, there's always that one or two things you want to fix, things you want to update. And so, I think there's always an opportunity after a period of time with a niche specific book to provide updated content, to bring added value. And so that's why, in addition to the aircraft insurance book was done and aerial application here, that's a constantly changing, very, very, very specialized field. So that certainly will have an opportunity down the road for some updates, and certainly this book will as well. But in general, it serves as a really, really good foundation. Should be very viable for very, any type of foreseeable future you and I have. But business is always changing. Aviation is about innovation and growth. Certainly in a day and age today where that's happening. We're looking at types of vehicles, different types of propulsions in a way that we haven't in many decades. And so it's an exciting time to be in aviation. Yeah. So that's why it's important to look at it and keep up to date and to keep bringing fresh content to your customers, your market.
Right. A couple of things that you said kind of brought to mind a conversation that I had with my son in the car. We ended up taking a long car ride over the weekend. And he asked me, because he was kind of seeking mentors in his profession and things and seeking guidance. And a lot of what he was finding was either outside of his field or maybe in a slightly different field. And he asked, well, who are your mentors? Because you're in aviation marketing, which is aviation and marketing are both kind of these funky little silos. And your name came up because, it is not necessarily, I mean, your job is insurance rather than marketing, but we're both in aviation. There's some overlap there, and seeing what you do well. And, I think a lot of aviation companies and other companies can take a lot of guidance from what they learn from somebody who is a thought leader in the industry, even if it's not quite their niche, or not niche, whatever you want to call it, depending on what part of the country you're from.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of the things that you are doing, you are looking for partnerships, you're looking for ways to assist in the industry, you're partnering with the CAM program, you're partnering with NBAA, other associations. And so, those are things that I've seen what you're doing. And, I take that as a a mentorship queue. I don't know if I've ever expressed that to you before, but I do see you that way. And I think that part of the reason for that is your intention, your values, and your commitment to make the industry better.
Yeah, well, that's a good, mentors is a good subject. And sometimes those are direct, sometimes those are colleague oriented or collaborative, such as what we have. And then, the other thing is, I can't remember who said it originally, but a number of people had, leaders are leaders and leaders are leaders. And so if, in order to lead and grow and impact your industry, to impact your team, to better serve your clients, you have to grow yourself. And so that's where, you have the book club. It's looking monthly at what we learn to grow. Obviously, a lot of yours is marketing, but there's obviously business things outside of that. And so, be a thought leader, you have to invest in yourself. You can't lead others where you can't take, where you can't take yourself. And so that's where reading not only like leadership or business type books, but, industry books and seeing how can we uniquely serve our industry and our customers. And so, I was fortunate to have, very specific mentors in terms of aviation insurance coverages and that, my dad may be one of the finest, Doug Johnson, retired a few years ago in the industry, but he served alongside me, the Aviation Insurance Association, teaching the core principles of aviation course. I've learned a lot from him, even in recent years. And so, I've told people that you never arrive. A lot of times in the industry, we learn so much that we finally arrive, and wisdom is knowing that you never finally arrive. You're constantly learning. And depending on your position, if you're a leader, you've got to learn a lot more things than just your niche to serve your customers well. And so I appreciate your comments. I really take that as a sincere compliment, but part of that is my own need to grow. That's one of our company core values is constant growth. We've always got to be slightly out of our comfort zone. We've got to, the way we do it today is great. We want to always be looking for that little bit of opportunity to grow. We want to be content and happy with where we've gone and what we've achieved now, but we know that we can continue to grow and that we'll be happier when we step just outside of that comfort zone to continue to grow. So, great mentors and then having collaborative, relationships or colleagues that help you to grow and sharpen your saw and to want to get better at what you do. And so, that's where having relationships like yours and others are so key, regardless of what part of the industry you're in. But you can have different types of mentors, and sometimes good authors can serve as de facto mentor as well. And so, that's what I challenge my team and challenge others is where is it you need to grow right now and what needs to change in order for you to do so. And then once they figure that out, I ask what's going to get in the way of you doing that. Because usually you make a goal and you got to figure out what's going to stop you from doing it and that as much as you can up front, knowing there'll be unforeseen things. Anyway, that's just my thought on that is I've been intentional about learning and about growing and with a healthy attitude. It's not about being discontent all the time. It's just knowing that we're doing great, but we can always get better and we want to invest in that, not only for our own team, myself, but, for those we serve.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's another thing that you and I share and that I take inspiration from you often when I'm not feeling inspired on that particular day is just, we are so lucky to work in this industry and we are so, I just approach every podcast episode and every office hour with the gratitude of, I'm so happy to be in a situation where I can help people feel like they can bring me a problem or a project or a situation and trust me with it. And that requires a lot of, I don't know what you would call it, but just, kind of that mindset of having the right attitude and the right frame of reference and wanting to help in the industry. And so I appreciate you supporting that as well. So some of those days when I'm not feeling quite so helpful, I can listen to one of your podcasts and go, he's got it. This is something that people do in this industry, and it's all about how can we improve each other and how can we help. So I wanted to thank you for that as well.
Yeah, well, we want to serve we look to serve the same people and and grow an industry, and so it does take more than one person. I don't think anyone always has every good day, and so it's nice to have those relationships around you you're having your off day, and a lot of times maybe tired or back end of a trip as it may be, is we're situation that's where surrounding yourself with really good people who share values, do things the right way, will inspire you to grow. And so, I have you and others around that help me in that arena, and
keep each other up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Great. Anything you wanted to add, or do you think we?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to come and talk with me on my podcast about aviation marketing. So I appreciate you extending the opportunity to catch up from my perspective and to share about the new book, released book. Again, for me, how much money do you make off that? I mean, not a lot. It's really not about that. Really bringing that content to the industry, and making that impact, and that's really what matters. Book sales for aviation insurance is never going to be a breadwinner for anybody, but if it covers its expenses, great. And so, I think just appreciate the things that came up today, and collaborative relationships, and just how providing value to your customers using these marketing channels, really serve a lot of people in more ways than you can even imagine. That's what I found. I'll go to an aviation insurance association or some other event get younger people in the industry to come up and want to meet me because they watched the podcast or read the book, and it was something I didn't expect, and makes me laugh a little bit. But that's what happens when you're bringing valuable content and making a difference in your industry. I'm a proponent of it. I encourage it. But I have your team's partnership in helping us do that, and glad that I was visit with you at this timely juncture right after NBAA and releasing this new airport aviation business insurance fundamentals book. And so I appreciate just this chance today, Paula.
Fantastic. So I guess we can kind of just wrap up with the book is available now on Amazon. So you can pre-order or actually order the book.
Yep.
And get it soon and have it on your bookshelf ready to answer those questions, especially about risk assessment. And if you are an aviation-related company, we just highly, highly recommend having that available to you so that you have answers to your questions at 4:00 in the morning or whenever you need to brush up on that, because it is so important. We didn't talk about risk management because there's a marketing podcast, but it is so important to have your insurance in a row, and so important to have people you trust on your team and be able to have that information ready when you need it, and people you can trust when you need them as well.
Absolutely. And all these books are available in Kindle, paperback, and hardback, depending on your format. And if you search aircraft insurance, aviation insurance, Amazon, I'm sure it'll come up. But if not, they can check out our company website, arisinsurance.com, and there's links to the books. There's links to our podcast, the Aviation Insurance Podcast, which is also available on YouTube and all the typical podcast players. Again, that just is bringing that information to the industry, so they can go to learn.
Right, and much more interesting than you would expect for an insurance podcast, I have to say.
Oh, good, yeah. It's a challenge, but we do talk about insurance, but we talk about risk management. We bring on, we've had Ed Bolin and industry leaders talking about safety and the future of the industry. So it is exciting to learn from them, and so appreciate that.
Great. Well, thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate learning from you as always, and I'm sure everyone listening to this is appreciating learning from something a little bit different angle. So, yeah,
we don't mind being different because normal lost in a crowd. We're always happy to be different. Always happy to be talking to you, Paula, and so have a great day. And again, thank you for your time.
Thanks for listening to the Aviation Insurance Podcast. If you found this episode of value, please share it with someone who would benefit from this information. Don't forget to subscribe in your podcast player so you don't miss any new episodes, and to help our show have more impact. This episode is brought to you by Aris Insurance Solutions, your flight plan for navigating the turbulence of aviation insurance. For more information, visit arisinsurance.com. That is www.aerisinsurance.com. Disclaimer. These episodes are for educational purposes only, and due to the changing regulatory and legal nature of the business, some information may change over time. Having a well-educated and experienced aviation insurance broker on your team is an absolute requirement to success in business and for managing your aircraft and aviation business risks.